Marla Williams. She's the Director of Marketing for PFNA. And then we also have on here, we have Eleanor and Marcus, and they're both with PepsiCo. Without further ado, I'm just going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. We have a lot to get to. We want to make sure that we have time to just go ahead and go for it. So, whoever'd like to jump off, Marlo, Marcus, Eleanor, wherever you want to go, we're here for you.
Okay, that sounds great. Eleanor, Marcus, do you want to give quick intros and then I can give an intro and kind of kick off with the presentation?
Yep, of course. I can go and kick it off. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus Hill. I'm the brand manager on Stacy's. I've been with the company for 3 years as of this month. So when I jumped on Stacy's, I took over the Stacy's Rise project, now transitioning to the Entrepreneur Fund. So it's been an amazing project. I'm really enjoyed it, really been fulfilling just to support women entrepreneurs. So I'm just excited, really, just to be an advocate and just support what is happening with all this amazing work. So I will popcorn it over to Eleanor.
Hi everyone, my name is Eleanor. I've been at PepsiCo for 6 years. I've worked on the brand side, but most recently have been working on at the internal agency for PepsiCo. And I have the great opportunity to work with nonprofits like NABO and help broker partnerships between brands and nonprofits. So I have had the distinct pleasure to work with people like Becky and really bring this partnership to life. And mostly really excited for y'all to hear from Marlo today. She's exceptional. I've worked with her. So smart, has great things to share. So just really excited for her to take it away.
Oh my gosh, you're hyping me up too much, Eleanor. But thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all. I feel like, Eleanor and Marcus have some of the coolest jobs in the company. Stacy's, I think, is one of our most iconic and purposeful brands, and the work that Eleanor has done in her partnerships role with partnerships like this on Stacy's, but also things that we've done in on Doritos with St. Jude and other initiatives is just really incredible. And so I'm really honored that they asked me to speak with you all today. I'm Marla Williams. I've been with the company for 15 years in a lot of different marketing roles, and am super excited to be here with you all today to, share a little bit about building a powerhouse brand. And so I've put together a few slides, but definitely want to keep this interactive, want to keep this conversational. So if you have questions or thoughts throughout, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll try and see them and navigate this thing while presenting. But also definitely want to leave time at the end for questions as well. And so, like I mentioned, super excited to be here to talk a little bit about building a powerhouse brand. Pepsi, Doritos, Lay's, those are some brands that fall within our PepsiCo family. Also, brands that I've had the privilege of being a part of since being here. And as I think about like powerhouse brands, these were some of the ones that first came to mind. But before jumping into the presentation, first and foremost, can you all see that you see the right screen? You see it in regular mode?
Yes.
Okay, great. Mission one accomplished. Okay. Before jumping into my presentation, I thought it would be helpful to start with a little bit about me because before we talk about, our company brands or products as brands, we ourselves are brands, a personal brand. And so, first and foremost, I'm a mom. I'm a mom to a 2-year-old named Langston. I'm the eldest daughter of three, which probably, is the reason why I have some strengths, but I also have some issues. I'm a wife to my husband, Rodney. And at work, I'm a business leader, innovator, and brand storyteller. This is a picture of me from this most recent Super Bowl with our Crash the Super Bowl winners for Doritos, which I'll chat a little bit more about later in the presentation. So why does branding matter? In today's competitive landscape, I'm not sure what industries you all are in. I'd love to hear that and see that in the chat, but I'm sure similar to what we face within food and beverage, people have a proliferation of choices and options, right? Our landscapes are highly competitive. And so a strong brand is more than just a logo or a name. It's really the heart and soul of your business. It's the promise that you keep to the people that you serve and the story that you tell the world. And in an ideal world, a well-defined brand, first and foremost, helps you attract your tribe, your community, your ideal customer. It allows you to build trust and loyalty with those people in a way that helps differentiate you from the competition and ultimately sets your business or brand apart from others in your space in a way that drives business value, whether that's sales, reach, growth in audience, etc. Um, and I think, a great example that's super top of mind for us is we've welcomed them to the PepsiCo family recently is Poppy. When you think about how this brand started as just, a problem to solve that the founder felt within her immediate life, she was the target audience. And ultimately building a brand that was differentiated within a category as large as the soda category to differentiate herself and her brand in a way from competitors like us and the other guys in a way that ultimately allowed her to, sell her business for close to $2 billion earlier this year. I think this is what we all strive towards in terms of the power that having a strong brand, having a powerhouse brand can unlock. I'm just looking in the chat real fast. Love it. Yes, we're so happy for her. So let's start with understanding your why first. I think this is where many of us, and I'm sure many of you have started in terms of should your brand exist? What drives you as a founder? And, how can you create something meaningful for the people that are most important to you, whether in your immediate world or, as you think about growing a brand? And so these are key questions that we ask ourselves internally as we're working on established brands like a Doritos or Lay's, or even as we're launching new to the world brands that we've had in the past. First and foremost, who's your target audience? And we ask this in two ways. First, like, who are you designing this brand for? In your ideal world, what does that person look like? It could start with, N of one, yourself or a family member that you're solving a problem for. But it could also be a community that you see that has unmet needs. In addition to thinking about your target audience through more of that design lens, it's also important to think about who else might your brand reach in a way that helps grow your business at scale. So who could that audience be that has some similar problems to your design target, but will allow you to reach a wider community? Second, what problem do you solve for them? This could be a functional problem in terms of, similar to Poppy. She was seeking a way to make apple cider vinegar taste better because of the health and wellness benefits that that product had, but a problem with the taste that she had. It could be an emotional problem to solve. How do you want people to feel from the product or brand that you have? And then third, how do you relate that to your core values? And I think what's really special about entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, is that you can approach this through both your brand or product lens, but also your personal lens as a founder. How might you link the two? And then lastly, as you look at the landscape, what exists today, but also with a lens to what might exist tomorrow, how can you make your brand stand out, both in terms of what it stands for, but also how it communicates. So understanding your why is really crucial for building a meaningful brand. And once you understand that, it becomes easier to unlock how you can communicate that in a way that resonates with people and connects with people on more of an emotional level. And so, as we think about brand building internally and what it means to build a meaningful brand purpose or reason for existing, we try to keep a few things in mind. First, having a vision of what your brand means to the world. When you think about why your brand exists, what comes to mind? The second one is really important and something I emphasize with my teams all the time. Keep it simple. and keep it meaningful to real people. Is what you're saying, like for why your brand exists, something that your mom would understand or your son would understand? Keep it really easy in words that normal people like us all use. Um, Third, is it inspiring? Is it exciting? Is it motivating? Like, how are you trying to get people to feel? And do you feel that when you speak about your brand purpose? The fourth one, also super important, like ensuring that this is something your brand can credibly do. If you're a brand in the health and wellness space, it's probably important that you have the reasons to believe from a functional perspective in having a health and wellness brand purpose. And then lastly, what's great about it having a meaningful brand purpose is that it helps you understand how your brand should behave, but also provides clear swim lanes on being able to make choices about what your brand may not do, where your brand may not stretch. And I think that can be super powerful. And so, as I mentioned, I want to keep this interactive and engaging. So, to kind of bring to life the power of brand purpose, you can drop it in the chat. How might you match these brands with their purpose? They're not in the right order. But each of these brand purposes are on this slide if you want to drop in the letters that you think are associated with each of them. There's probably a better way to do this, but yes, I think Rebecca and Sierra, you got the right answer. And Kylie, yes. And so I think this just illustrates, the power that having a meaningful and purposeful brand can have. Airbnb and Walt Disney World, to some extent, are both travel companies, but you're able to pull them apart in a differentiated way. Similarly, BBC and Google are both information companies, news companies to some extent, but you're able to pull apart their brand purposes in a meaningful way because they've clearly defined what they stand for as a brand. And also, in doing that, perhaps, some things that they don't stand for. And a big key to establishing and maintaining a brand purpose is doing it consistently. So consistency is really the bedrock of a strong brand. And I think when you look at our portfolio, there's brands like Doritos, where hopefully if I say Doritos, there's some very simple and consistent things that you attribute to the brand, like boldness, maybe crunch, maybe colors like red or orange. And so consistency is really important. Even if you think about a brand like Apple, right? You immediately recognize their visuals for being simple but innovative, for being inclusive, but elevated. And this carries through everything from their visuals to how they communicate, both in text, words, voice, as well as their overall experience, right? I'm not sure if any of you have storefronts, but as you think about the in real life experiences of your brand or even the digital experiences of your brand, are you doing it in a way that feels consistent across all touch points so that what you say your brand stands for, what you say that brand purpose is extended in a way that feels recognizable, feels memorable in a very easy way for people to understand? And some, I guess, tools that help you drive that consistency, we call distinctive brand assets. So these are kind of shortcuts that we have that allow us to help our brands truly stand out in a way that feels unique, and helps provide visual, audio, other types of cues that helps people instantly almost identify and feel something about our brand. So take a brand like Doritos, starting with a strong logo. A logo can really be the essence and starting point of your brand. This is something that can be brought to life across different touch points in different ways. And for this, something that we like to consider is how logos can be shown across different touch points. Here you see a 4-color logo similar to what's on our back, our packaging, and other touch points. Does it also come through in a 1-color logo if we are a sponsor of an event, or if we're doing something on social? That's important to consider. Color palette. So colors can immediately be a visual cue for a brand. For us, red, black, orange are colors that people associate with our brand. So as you think about that, there's different ways to consider that. It could be colors related to your brand. It could be colors related to your products or different flavors, different types of experiences or moods that you're trying to communicate. Typography and imagery help to create familiarity with your audience, and this can be brought to life again across different touch points. It can communicate different benefits about your product in a consistent way. And then lastly, and this one can be one of the hardest to do consistently, especially depending on different channels, is, your tone of voice. Is your brand playful? Is it energetic? Is it more inspirational, motivational, refined? Ensuring that you're clear on your brand's character and tone can really help drive consistency across touch points. And so for us, a great example that I think brought this to life, and we'll double click into it a little bit more, is Doritos Crash the Super Bowl. So I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with this, but this is a campaign that we did from 2006 to 2016 that we also brought back this year, where we gave our fans the chance to create our Doritos Super Bowl ad for the chance to win $1 million and have their ad featured on the big game. And I think what was so incredible about this, both back in the day as well as this year when we did it, was the way that people brought the brand to life was extremely consistent, even though the stories were very different, the executions were very different in terms of how people made the brand show up, with the bag front and center, eating a chip in a very similar way, having humor used in a similar way, just speaks to the power of consistency in that, it's not just us playing it back to consumers, it can also be consumers playing it back to us, which is very special. Okay, so after establishing, your brand purpose, what that brand identity is, what you're solving for your target audience in a meaningful way, creating some distinctive assets like a logo, typography, your tone of voice that you want to have to communicate that in a consistent way. The last piece, and maybe, the hardest piece, is marketing strategies that allow you to bring this to life in a meaningful way. So marketing is really a way for you to amplify your brand purpose and drive reach with those distinctive assets in a way that drives awareness and understanding with your target audience in a way that helps you achieve whatever action and behavior you want them to achieve as consumers, right? It may be that you're just starting out, and so what's most important to you right now is just getting the name of your brand out there, or helping your target audience understand your proposition as a brand or a product or service in comparison to your competition. It could be that, you are more developed and you're not only trying to drive awareness, but you're trying to build engagement, build a community, and have people, talk about your brand on your behalf. And so as you're thinking about these things, marketing plays a huge role. There's different levers you can pull depending on the resources that you have and ultimately the behavior that you're trying to entail, like social media, like search engine optimization, which is super interesting right now as you think about like AI and the role that AI plays in helping people determine the brands and products that they're choosing in their lives, PR and partnerships. And all of this ultimately helps you engage with consumers, have two-way dialogue with consumers so that you are, attracting them, but they're also able to provide you with feedback that allows you to learn and iterate with your brands, and ultimately helps foster a sense of belonging with that tribe or community that you're trying to build. I have a little case study that hopefully brings a lot of this together that, is very big in scale, right, in terms of Doritos and Super Bowl, but hopefully at the end, it comes back to some tangible and actionable steps that you all can learn from, apply to your businesses and brands. So, let's take it back, gosh, almost 20 years ago. Crash the Super Bowl started in 2006. YouTube had just launched. MySpace was still around. Facebook was just available to college students. And at our company, Frito-Lay, Doritos was struggling. The brand hadn't been on Super Bowl in over 5 years, but we were thinking about bringing it back. And at the time, this agency partner pitched a radical idea. What if we held a contest to give real people, not professional ad agencies, a crack at creating our Super Bowl ad? It was fresh, it was new, and at the time, we had nothing to lose. And, no success, it was wildly successful. And, for me as a consumer, some of these ads like House Rules or Time Machine, the GOAT ads still live rent free in my mind as some of the most iconic, not just for this brand, but as I think about Super Bowl overall. But, as is typical sometimes in marketing, after doing something consistently after 10 years, we decided to change our approach to focus our Super Bowl campaigns on something different. And leverage Super Bowl in a way to drive new product news with the help of celebrities more ingrained in contemporary culture. So that, fast forward to today, Doritos, is a multi-billion dollar brand, category leader that's known for disrupting culture, especially on one of the biggest advertising stages in the world, which is Super Bowl. That said, last year, was that last year? What year are we in? 2025. Yeah, I guess about a year and a half ago, as we were thinking about what we were going to do for Super Bowl this year, 2025. We thought about bringing back Crash. There was a lot of nostalgia going on as you were looking at culture and what consumers were craving in terms of comfort and ease. We knew that we wanted to bring humor, just given the times that we're in. And we thought from a business perspective, it was a really unique time to go back to celebrating our core brand, Red Bag, that people know and love versus innovation. And so we made the bold move to bring back Crash in a way that would harken back to, the old days of the contest from the mid 2000s, but we wanted to do it in a way that felt fresh for today's generation of creators. As you think about the from to in terms of when we first started Crash, YouTube just launching, to now where, everybody's goal is to be a star on TikTok. And so to bring back Crash in a modern way, but also in a way that aligned with our overall brand purpose of igniting boldness within our fans, we launched Crash with a bold challenge to our fans as well as to creators and makers alike. Let's see if this plays.
Create a better Super Bowl ad, and you could win $1 million.
So we promoted this message with the masses across TV, streaming, social, and digital in a way that had that nostalgic nod to Crash of the past with the GOAT and with other stars from our past ads. But we also wanted to make sure that we actually got quality submissions from creators and makers in the film industry, social media, etc. And so we were really choiceful with also doing outreach, via social media and influencers that were super relevant with our target audience of this campaign, which included film schools, ad schools. And so we had out of home in places like New York and LA. We partnered with influencers whose specific niche was on content creation and specifically how to make things like films and ads. And ultimately, the result was amazing with, just a simple brief, show us your love of Doritos and some simple assets in terms of, an end card with our Doritos logo and some of our visual assets that we keep consistent. We received a range of submissions from our fans, from grandparents with their grandkids to catchy jingles filmed in grocery stores to some really incredible work made by up and coming filmmakers, seniors in college, and even indie production companies that really showcased, the breadth of what can happen when you engage your fans in a way that feels consistent with your brand. And And so, we did a lot to promote the campaign, right? But I think the real magic happened through the makers themselves, people that were the biggest advocates for our brands, but also their work, because they were able to activate their communities to drive awareness and engagement for their ads and ultimately the brand, right? So, a few examples. We didn't know this at the time, but one of the finalists for Crash the Super Bowl Barbershop, it was created by two seniors at USC, and one of the actors that they had hired was the son of Mike Tyson. And so Mike Tyson ended up sharing their ad on his social media to his 34 million followers, right? The makers of Charades, who are based here in Dallas, they galvanized their local community here in Dallas, ranging from like local news to their kids' schools in a really unique grassroots way. And then ultimately, our winners, Nate and Dylan, who are literally up and coming young filmmakers, super talented, based in LA, but from the Midwest, are probably the best example of what can happen when you find and build and invest in community of people who love your brand because they just in total, probably created hundreds of videos to encourage people to watch their content, vote on their content, and ultimately follow their journey as the winners of the campaign. And so ultimately, this was a huge success for us. From a Super Bowl perspective, there were lots of accolades, but I think what we were most proud of was taking risks in a way that allowed us to learn and also ignite confidence in the power that can happen when you have a strong brand purpose, and you allow your fans to take that to higher places for you. And so, some learnings that I would just leave you all, or considerations I'd leave you all with from this example specifically, because I know, like, we're talking Super Bowl, we're talking Doritos. It's very different from being an entrepreneur, but I think some of these lessons are still highly relevant. Fan first. If you truly understand your target audience, what their lives are like, what they need, what they value, you can trust them to unleash their own creativity and their own love for your brand in a way that propels you forward. Second, from a marketing perspective, there's so many different ways to evaluate success. Prioritizing KPIs that are tied to behaviors you want people to take can help you be really successful. It's not just about, driving clicks or even driving sales. What is the behavior you want people to take? What do you want them to tell their friends or their family about your product and brand? And how might you make that happen through how you bring your brand to life through every single touch point? And then lastly, being audience obsessed. So really focus on who that target audience is, who that needs to halo to, and deliver the content that's going to be relevant to them in a way that feels credible and authentic to the brand that you're building. And then lastly, I just included this in here as something that's been helpful to me, not just to build, brands here at Frito, but also as I think about my personal brand in terms of some key questions that are helpful to think through, to workshop, to help you get sharper on what you're trying to accomplish in building meaningful brands. And so that's all I've got. Happy to answer any questions.
Marlo, before we get into questions, is it possible to leave up the cheat sheet as we ask those questions?
Yes.
Does anybody else would like that to happen?
Yep. Can you see it?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Just in case. Oh, somebody was screenshotting it. Fantastic. Good job, Rebecca. All right. What questions do you have? This was great, Marlo. I was just jotting away. I love all the information that you gave, and we're just so happy to have you as a partner. So I'm really wondering what questions does everybody have?
See, Rebecca's hand is raised.
Hi. So I just wanted to say thank you. We actually have served, I would say, like 5 to 8 different Frito-Lay's locations throughout New York and New Jersey over the years with our truck. So we're food truck caterers, and I think I just recently had a conversation with another business owner colleague of mine, and I think for a lot of us, where the disconnect falls is when you have more than one customer type, and how do you how do you go about making the decision, okay, I'm ready to fully invest in this one customer, even if you still derive a lot from your other customers? I think that's kind of, I know what your presentation touched upon. I'm
Mhm.
big fan of marketing. I love marketing, starting to put more and more money into marketing. But for me as a caterer, I feel like social media is just like, it's not, it, if I post something, if it's a beautiful photo of food, it's relevant to my clients, but I don't really see it being the catalyst to the conversion. I see it being a part of it. I see customers reaching out, then them going, and if I'm responsive and they like the menu and they like the pricing and everything goes well, yes, social media will be a part of it because they will see the photos, they'll see the videos, but in terms of knowing where you are as a brand and choosing to like fully dive into that one sector that, even though it might not be your biggest bank sector, it might be your most consistent sector. I think that's kind of where a lot of us get stuck. I don't know if that was really a question or a comment. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm very tired. It's
No,
been
I can relate to you being very tired. I too am very tired. But I think I understand, but you let me know if this helps
sure.
or not. So I think like in terms of it, first and foremost, it's really important to know like what your brand stands for, what your proposition is, and the benefits that offers to customers, right? And to your point, I think there's different types of customers, right? Like as a food truck vendor, you may have corporations like Frito or Pepsi that are one of your key partners. You may also have, moms looking for birthday party options, right? And so I think what's
Yep.
most important is knowing what your proposition is and knowing how you can pivot that to reach those different audiences in a way that drives conversion.
Yeah.
That said, I think, bandwidth is certainly a consideration, right? In terms of how do you prioritize your time and resources to reach the audience that's going to be most meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And meaningful, you have to decide what meaningful means. It could mean that at this point of your career, meaningful is about what's going to bring the most consistent revenue. It could mean that meaningful is what's going to help you diversify the number of options. I think like making those strategic choices in terms of what's most important to you, in terms of what different customers offer, is probably part of it. And then the other part is, and I think you're already considering this a little bit, is like, you're right, social media isn't going to play a huge role in terms of attracting an audience to you, but it can play a huge role in helping people discover your business.
All of
And
it. Yeah.
so, what you want to be consistent in and specific in is as people are searching for food trucks or food experiences or occasions that are adjacent to your business, how do you ensure that your content pops up because it's relevant to what they're seeing in their feed?
Okay.
And so I think hashtags can play a huge role in that, tagging and partnerships can play a huge role in that, etc. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
It was. Thank you. I think the biggest problem I have with marketing, and it's not a problem, it's an opportunity, is that there's always another layer. And like you get to one part and then you still have to climb another four stories and then you discover something else. Marketing is literally a never-ending funnel. And
Yes.
I think it's just a matter of taking it on and paying attention to it.
Yeah, no, there it's endless, right? And it's always on, and we're moving at the speed of culture, and so it can be exhausting. I think my biggest advice would be to be choiceful with where you spend your energy based
Mhm.
off of the types of customers and occasions that you're trying to tap into. So I'll just give a personal example because my
Sure.
daughter's birthday is in 2 weeks. Like I've been on Pinterest just pinning pinning food, pinning decor, pinning cake inspiration for her birthday party, right? Like being in a place, considering how you might be in a place like that, if that's an occasion or experience that, your brand is interested in reaching, like could be more valuable potentially than being on a TikTok. Or, I might use Canva or I might use ChatGPT to help me curate a birthday experience and help me identify vendors in my community to help me pull all this together. Like, how can you think about keywords in a way that ensures your business is coming up, as these new generative tools are becoming more of a part of our daily lives and routines?
I get that. I will say long-winded phrases. They definitely. I changed my marketing strategy completely with SEO because of AI. Because I had been investing in a company that was doing like marketing blogging, and when AI took over, we were not coming up in any searches anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a whole thing. But thank
Great
you. I
question,
really
Rebecca.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And Marla, I think everyone was able to write down the cheat sheet.
Oh,
So if you want to see everybody's face and ask Marlo any other questions that you may have, that was really great questions. And it looks like Sierra put a note here. It says longer sentences for Alexa, Google Hubs, etc. Would you like to expand on that, Sierra?
Yeah, this was just like a kind of a personal thing that I was running into, and I'm kind of dying because it was with my child's birthday party too. And it like reminded me. But like for keywords, what I've run into, like I'm constantly updating it for my category, but I didn't even think of like devices and smart homes and how people are using technology. So like we have like a Google Hub, and so like we can like ask questions and stuff, but it's longer format. So including those two, because it's just not another like access point of reaching your possible target if that's part of their behavior or patterns through the day. And I didn't even think of that until I was at home trying to research stuff and I was asking Google because my daughter had my phone. So like other things, because I feel like, and I'm always like learning, like, oh my God, I didn't even think about it because it's always evolving. And so, like, I'll constantly try to like challenge myself to update, like, not update the persona who I'm targeting, but they're like kind of day in a life. They're 24 hours and what they're doing, because that helps me go back to like, okay, where are they getting the information? If that makes any sense.
yeah, it does.
I really love that. Marlo, that was to me that was like an aha what you said about thinking about your ideal customer and what a day in the life for them looks like, because that will help you to be able to create your story, for lack of a better word. What are your thoughts, Marlo?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think having so much access to data is so powerful, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm really passionate about is just being human centric and really thinking about real people in a real and tangible way. And so I think, Sierra, what you just said in terms of imagining a day in the life and continuing to iterate on that, right? Because we're not just stagnant in moments of time. We're continuously adapting to what's going on in our lives, what's going on externally is incredibly important in terms of balancing like the access to data and what it can unlock in terms of us optimizing our businesses, optimizing our marketing and advertising while still having a human-centric point of view on what we're doing and what we're delivering to real people.
It's great. Kylie has a question. It was, what are some practices you recommend for opening up the funnel and helping your brand consistently reach new customers? I know you mentioned a few things for social media, but for us, that has been very hit and miss and hard to find consistency with.
Mm. So I think it really depends on the business and your target audience and like what you're ultimately trying to achieve, right? And so it could be that social media serves one type of purpose for you in terms of just being there for people to discover, right? Kind of similar to what a website historically, traditionally has served versus something like email or text, maybe a more like a better, more effective way for you to reach your target audience. I think it kind of just depends on like what your business is, what occasions you're tapping into, who your target customer is.
Kylie, would you like to come off of mute and give a little bit more information?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we are a supplement brand, our first product being a supplement that you take to prevent your hangover. So we're always trying to be in fun places, social events, anywhere where booze is flowing is a great place for us to be, is what we always say. So yeah, we of course have done trade shows and we have, connected with other brands on social media for giveaways and we're always throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks with social media, but yeah, sometimes we have big wins and then other times we feel like we're really struggling to bring in new customers and expand that funnel. So
Yeah.
it's been, fun trying to figure it out but frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, a lot of it's trial and error, right? But it sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things in terms of identifying partnerships, identifying spaces that may make the most sense. Like off the top of my head, it may be, if you haven't already done this, it may be helpful to think about like not just, you know, the bars where people might be where they'll get a hangover later, but like where are people going after they have a hangover and how might you partner with those brands or reach that audience then? Like, are they going to, I don't know, a Smoothie King or a Juice Land or et cetera the morning after, a bagel shop? And then I think too, like in those moments where you are finding that you're reaching those target customers, it may be helpful to think through, okay, how can I continue to maintain this relationship with them? Does it make sense to set up like a text bot or an email bot or even a social bot, right? Like I think social bots can be super helpful these days. So it may be that like the acquisition only comes once in a while, but if you're able to figure out how to maintain those connections with those partners that you've made, that may help.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody commenting as well. Appreciate it.
You got the juices flowing, Marlo,
Yeah.
because some things that we never thought about, then all of a sudden we're kind of jumping in like, yeah, that's true, that's true. So that's great. Well, I think that this was really great. I took a ton of notes myself, and I think to your point that this is an area where there's like a lot of trial and error. Um, and and I think that's where I think a lot of the frustration comes from because there's not one secret sauce, right? Um, and so I think like I said, I think that's the frustration. How do you speak to that, Marlo? Like, because we just get, I'll tell you about my personal. For me, like I'll be super gung-ho about social media and then I'm over it. Like I'm just done. And so it's a constant start, stop, continue, stop. And it's just ugh. So I don't know if anybody, I see some heads nodding. I see same, same. So what is your thoughts about that? Because I mean, social media is free advertising, but it does take a lot of time and your time is not free. So these are the things that from what I hear from entrepreneurs in this group and other of my NABO sisters is that's where we get stuck a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, personally, I find social media to be more of a burden than a benefit as well outside of my day job. But that said, I would say a few things. Like with social media specifically, I would consider how can you leverage tools, technologies, capabilities to streamline some of that so that if you aren't super energized by, coming up with a content calendar, or, coming up with a content posting schedule, that you're offloading some of that. I think there's so many incredible tools these days you can use, number one. Number two, if that's still not enough, like how might you just set aside some dollars with influencers, content creators who do this not just for a living, but also have the reach and community that would allow you to get your brands out there into the audiences that you're trying to reach in a way that helps you, drive awareness and understanding for your brand with the people that you're trying to connect to in an authentic way. I think that's also an option. But that aside, a lot of marketing is trial and error. And, something that I like to say is like our business, our brands move at the pace of culture. And so even when you feel like, yes, I've finally cracked the code on the type of content that breaks through for Doritos on social, well, TikTok could be gone tomorrow and then I'll have to figure it out all over again, right? And so the way that I like to look at it is just learnings, and through trial and error, you get to really understand the behavior of your target consumers, what they care about, what they're talking about, so that you can think through how to bring your brand to life on these platforms, but also outside of these platforms, right? Like, for example, with Doritos on social media, we saw a lot of people talking about leveraging Doritos to, make snacks that people eat late at night after being hungover, as an example, right? That hasn't just influenced our content strategy from a social media perspective. It's also influenced some of the flavors we've launched, like late night hamburger, late night taco, et cetera. And so look at this trial and error, especially, on social and from a content perspective, not just through the lens of, I don't know if somebody's going to see this content, but also through, a learning perspective of being able to get closer to your target consumer and understanding, you know, that their lives in a way that could be relevant to your brand and what you're building.
That's wonderful. When I think about Doritos and when I think about Poppy, right? Poppy's a sweet story, and we would all love to be that. What would be one thing that you would say if we took away right now that would just really help a beginning entrepreneur when it comes to branding? What would that one grab or that one thing that I should just put into my wallet, for lack of a better word? What would you say that was for if you're not a big brand like Poppy or Doritos or Pepsi?
Yeah. I would say I can't do one. I think it's two, especially as I think about Poppy and where they started versus where they are now.
Mm-hmm.
Be different, be consistent. I think those are the two most important things. Like when you think about what she built, it was a truly differentiated proposition. Like there were and there continue to be plenty of uses for apple cider vinegar. There are other beverages that have apple cider vinegar in them. What made her different was she chose not to be like a health and wellness functional beverage. She chose to be a carbonated soft drink, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that was a point of differentiation versus what the carbonated soft drink category looked like with the Coca-Colas, Dr. Peppers, Pepsis of the world, right? And I think that difference was communicated not just, it started with the product itself, but then she translated it through every aspect, every touch point of the brand. Like you look at the cans, the visual identity that she chose, it's feels disruptive when you look at the shelf set, even today. And so I think that's something like be different, like know what your category looks like today and think through your points of difference and how that can be communicated across touch points. And then with that, be consistent. It only works if you're consistent. And she was very consistent and very true to herself and what she believed in as a founder and for her brand in terms of what the brand stood for, the types of flavor experiences that could go in the brand, the types of ingredients that could or couldn't go in the brand. And I think those two things together, the difference in consistency, paid off, obviously, in a very
In
exceptional
a very
way
big
for
way.
her.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is that whole be different and be consistent, because I think that most of us can say, yeah, we are different, right? And that's what drives us and that's what makes us really excited. The consistency part, I think, might be an opportunity for most of us because there's shiny object, right? Or we go to a million of these classes and cohorts and marketing and networking groups and all that kind of stuff. And so it's like shiny object, shiny object, shiny object. So I think that that's key. I don't know if I need to put Post-its up all over the place or what that looks like. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
and
think
sometimes change could be good, right? Like when you hear her founder story, originally Poppy was called Mother, and one of her initial create like startup or investors was like, I think you need to change that. And she wasn't 100% sure, but like
mm,
she trusted them, she trusted her gut, and again, she brought it back to her point of difference in the soda pop category as the rationale for doing that. And so, it's okay to pivot, right? Especially as founders and entrepreneurs, you're going to have to pivot, but do it in a way that still feels consistent with your core values and your core beliefs and your brand.
it's wonderful. Does anybody else have another question before I ask the final question? Okay, so Marlo, and this could go to Marlo, Marcus, anybody who wants to, well, or Eleanor, so the three of you. My question is, as we have done this talk, and it has been very eye-opening for a lot of us, what is one question that we didn't ask that you wish we would have?
Ooh. That's a good question. Eleanor, Marcus, you guys have anything?
I have one that popped up. I'm surprised. Maybe you all were asking this question, but I'm surprised no one directly asked, where do I start? It sounded like everyone was so far into what we call like the execution of things, social media, search engine optimization, AI. I get that, but the things that Marlo is talking about go beyond just a multi-billion dollar company like PepsiCo or Doritos. These are things that everyone should be thinking about, those points of differentiation, how you talk about your product and being consistent. You don't need to be a multi-billion dollar product to do that, but it's how you think about your brand. And it really starts with those things that Marlo talked about, the brand message, what you stand for. You need to start there because otherwise you will be in a repeated cycle of throwing things against the wall on social media and seeing what sticks. Like you have to start with the basics of your brand, and then it funnels down to how you show up on social media or where you show up on social media. Maybe you should be on Instagram only, maybe Instagram and TikTok. Maybe you should be on Facebook and Twitter. So that's what your brand strategy and how you show up and your point of differentiation, that's how it bleeds through to how you get to your execution. You have to start up at a high level first.
I think that's spot on, and I think it's okay, Marcus, that if I'm following you too, it's okay to take a pause and go back and start over based on this information that we've gotten today and revamp. And like you said, it's okay to make sure that we have the right message. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, if I had time, I really could show you not even brands. I could show you a ton of even influencers who started in one direction. And when you go far back enough on their page to the very beginning, you're like, whoa, hold on, what is this? I'm gonna even recognize this content. That's because they looked at their competition, thought about their audiences, and they're like, how do I want to show up? And it completely changed how they show up. So it's not just for brands, it could be literally for any entrepreneur on this call right now.
That's fantastic. Eleanor, Marlo?
I don't have any builds. That was a great one.
If Eleanor vouches, I know I said something right.
Yeah, I agree. I think, clearly defining kind of your brand purpose, your reasons for existence, that's hard. It's really hard to do. And it takes time. And sometimes it can be easier to just jump straight to the execution or the manifestation of that. But I think Marcus was spot on in terms of if you take the time to do that work in a meaningful way, like it's easier to do the execution piece.
This has been a fantastic conversation. We can't thank you guys enough for presenting this to us, and we thank PepsiCo for partnering and just giving us all of this for information. As you know, participants, this call has been recorded, and so that will be shared with you because I think it just really helps you to every now and then to go back and to refresh and to remember and get re-energized. So this was fantastic. Thank you so much, PepsiCo, Marcus, Eleanor, and Marlo. This was fantastic information.
Awesome. Well, it was great chatting with you all.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. Best of luck in your journeys.